In this video, you'll learn about the new breeding and genetics features, ranching, and the perks of bestiary. You will also learn to ride mammoths, tuskers, and other mountable animals, tame wolves, hyenas, boars, and others, as well as care for pets from the Orbital Workshop. Let's start off with taming a rideable mount. The most important thing that you should do as soon as you get into the game, because it will reduce your travel time considerably. There's 4 categories of mounts you can have, and of course, the lines between them can be blurry. Still, here's how I categorize them. Travel mounts, meant for fast travel, haulers, buffaloes and tuskers, general purpose, for those in between, and fighters, which has only mammoths so far, though as I said the lines are blurry and you could put tuskers in here. Also, with the new DLC on the horizon, there will be more mounts added soon. To tame a mount, you need to find an animal with a baby. Kill the parent, then walk up to the baby, click lead. Bring them to your home, to a place with fences and a gate. This is important because otherwise it may get killed by other wildlife. Inside the fence, build a bed, water, and feed throws. You only need to fill the feed throw as water will accumulate on its own from rain, provided your ranch doesn't have a roof, and there's no reason for it to have it. As of this video's recording, every animal in this game is an omnivore, so just put whatever food you have, and they'll feed themselves. When the taming process is done, you can just walk up to the animal and click claim. If you are ready to keep an eye on your animal and protect it, a stable like this is not needed. You can tame one even in the wild, as long as you bring an animal bed with you and feed them from your hand. This is what I did with this mammoth. Yes, you tame all the rideable animals the same way, and yes, you can feed, water, and heal animals directly from your inventory, just have to equip the item and click the right mouse button. By the way, only one animal at a time can occupy a bed, regardless how small. Once you tame the animal, craft a hitching post and a hitching rope at the ranching station to make sure your tame doesn't leave, or just go into its settings and mark stay. At the same station, choose a saddle to craft, equip it on the animal, and that's how you ride a mount. Saddles need to be researched one by one, but if you have Creature Comforts DLC, a lot of them will be available to you by researching this tech. If you're playing with friends and one of them has the DLC, they can craft a more advanced saddle and just give it to you. Racing saddle is the one that I find best, but it doesn't work on a mammoth. If you're taming a buffalo, you can equip it with a cart to help you move stuff, or a selection of farming attachments to deal with the crops. The additional benefit of having a mount is that you can overencumber yourself with tons of resources and still move quickly, because the weight of your backpack doesn't affect the speed of the mount. If you want to know how to have 400 inventory slots filled with ore without suffering overencumber debuff, check out my video here. Moving on, there's a couple animals that you can tame and use as companions in hunting. These are all types of wolves, hyenas and boars, plus dogs, but those you get from the Orbital Workshop. I don't personally use these animals in combat because they're slower than Moa, so when I travel they get lost and stuck in places. I've read that some people use Orbital Exchange interface to move their wolves from place to place, and I'll explain a bit later how to do that, but for me that's just too much hassle. Also, I don't want to worry about accidentally killing them in the mess of a battle, plus they adore to walk into fire. Once they die, they're gone, so it's just a lot of time wasted. But, for the sake of variety, here's how you tame the mentioned predators. First off, grab the snare trap and baits in the tech tree. Tier 2, craft the snare trap and the bait in the ranching station specifically for the animal you'll be taming, wolf, boar or hyena. Baits don't spoil, so don't bother refrigerating them. Then go to the biome that those animals call home. Obviously don't try to lure in a wolf in a desert, and arm the trap. Now hide and give it some time. If you're not seeing any animal within a minute, check the map to see if you have a creature deterrent blocking the access for them. Once a wolf is baited, it'll get hooked to the post. The prompt here will say that you have to feed it. You might be tempted to arm the trap once again, but this will only lure in another wolf, but won't trap it. Instead, hunt down some other animal and just drop the carcass near the wolf you're taming. But note that the carcass can also attract other animals, so stay in the area to protect your soon-to-be companion. However, those animals that you kill will not work as food for your wolf until you take them in your hands and drop by the post. In my experience, it takes 2 animal carcasses and up to 15 minutes to finish the taming process. Don't wander too far during this time, as then your ensnared animal will despawn. Once it's ready, just walk up to it like any other animal, claim it, and set it to follow. Then, you can put it on a leash just like any other animal. The last category of animals is utility pets. Bees are the only utility animal that you can find out in the world, all the others can only be obtained through the Orbital Workshop. Check out my guide on exotics and Orbital Workshop here. Let's start with the bees. You can find their nests in caves and in dead trees like these. They spawn bees, which will attack you. They're not what you need, so just kick them, punch them, throw them in the stew. Hit the bee nest with any tool or weapon until you can click F. You may find a queen bee, worker bees, and honeycombs. If you don't discover a queen, try again next time, but they're only needed for breeding more worker bees with the help of this breeding module. Otherwise, worker bees can produce all the honeycomb you need, but they will despawn when they're exhausted. Just toss them in a beehive, you don't need any flowers, and they'll make you honeycombs. Then you can make honey and beeswax from them, which you can use to make reinforced wood structures, candles, different foods to eat for temporary buffs, and survival kit, which is the most versatile medical tool in the game. As I said earlier, all the other utility animals can only be obtained through the Orbital Workshop. There's cow, chicken, sheep, pig, and a dog named Laika that you can get without any DLCs. If you own the Pet Companions pack, you can also get yourself some other dog breeds, cats, and horses in 3 different colors. Chickens are the only way to get eggs, and cows are the only way to get milk, both of which are needed for a bunch of recipes. Sheep are the only way to get wool, which is the only way to craft certain things like Arctic Survival Saddle, Arctic Survival Armor, and the new decorative items. Other than that, wool can be used as a substitute for fiber, and for building a bed that speeds up gestation. You'll need shears to get wool from female sheep only. For all these animals to produce anything, they have to be well fed and watered, and it's best to keep them inside walls unless you pray to our Lord and Savior Chicken Jesus. I'm serious, I don't know how they always escape my enclosure, but it's such a pain to deal with them, I don't recommend having an enclosure. Just build a walled barn and you won't have to pull your hair out. Just note that chicken coop is higher than 1 floor, and also don't put it flush against the wall if you don't have a roof, because they'll just walk off of it. Also, fun fact, you can hide from storms inside chicken coops, and chickens will lay eggs directly into the feeder. The purpose of cats and dogs in the game is to be annoying, but also if you can somehow manage to keep them close to your bed, they can slightly increase coziness, the stat that improves the quality of your sleep. But if they wander off about 7 tiles away from your bed, you will not get any coziness points. Another reason to get them is for their aura skills, those that give buffs to everyone in the vicinity, though there's not that many. And the last reason to get them is to earn the Bestiary bonuses. Click J to access it. I haven't talked about it yet. Each time you kill, skin, scan, level up, get killed by, or make a trophy out of an animal, you get points in the Bestiary. Every 20% of an animal's bestiary total grants 1% bonus damage and resistance to that animal. Reaching 40% and 100% points for each of the species gives permanent bonuses to your character. The most useful ones, I think, are those granted by bears, tyrannus, dogs, and horses, but I personally don't think any of them are worth your time going out of your way to get. It takes a really long time and many of the perks are not noticeable in practice. Plus, you can't even see what perks each animal grants you until you collect the necessary points, which is why I'm showing you this table. Still, getting the perks for animals that can be domesticated is relatively easy, so why not get those and leave the others to chance? All you have to do is get some Ren and exotics and research the beast scanner. Check my guide on exotics in the description. And then, because you can scan your own animals an unlimited number of times, just scan them until you reach 100%. We're doing it for dogs, tyrannus, and horses if you care about small improvements. These 3 will give you plus 15% maximum stamina for animals, plus 5% animal stamina regeneration, and plus 10% weight capacity for you and your mounts. But of course, if you have the time, why not scan other animals? Cats maybe, for the bleed status effect. For some reason the game says you have to click right mouse button to scan, but it's actually left button currently. Before you invest in the beast scanner though, note that it's extremely dull, and I spent 11 minutes just to get the Tyrannus up by 50%. Every animal that you own decreases computer performance, and every animal that you own also has a set of commands that you can apply to them. Holding F, you get access to this list. From the first column, I recommend setting follow for the animals that you travel with. This way, if you die, they will teleport right back to you instead of also dying at the hands of the beast that got you. This will also allow you to travel back for your loot much faster. Another way to keep them safe is to tell them to stay a bit farther away when you're expecting to fight someone tough. From combat, I keep mine at either passive or defensive. Passive is good when I don't want my mounts joining into battles where they won't be of any help anyway, and defensive is good when I'm leaving them alone for a while and don't want them to just turn the other cheek when they're getting mauled. Aggressive should only be reserved for wolves and such. One thing to note is that there are animals that have area of effect attacks, which means that if a hostile animal comes to your base, your Tyrannus, for example, will defend itself by hitting the floor and dealing damage not just to the enemy but to all structures around. So to keep your animals and your base safe, I recommend putting your animals on passive when they're at home and crafting a creature deterrent to ensure they're safe and sound. Some people use tamed wolves set to wander to protect their homes, which is an option. Any creature that is fed and watered will gain 10% of the XP that you get from the activities you do near them. And they get passive XP if they are 100% fed and watered. Each species has a different skill tree, but all of them can only receive 25 skill points, and you cannot respec their skills. If you want to unlock all the skills, install a mod that removes this cap. They will, regardless of this, continue to level up and increase their health at each level up to level 50. Speaking of health, your animals will not die from being in a wrong environment, but they might suffer some debuffs. Similarly, your animals cannot starve to death or die from dehydration. They will just run and fight slowly. So if you have a creature deterrent in place, you don't even have to water them and feed them until it's time to go, unless you're eager to have them level up passively. Giving them specialized food gives them perks, but unlike you, they have 2 stomach slots, not 3, unless you teach them this large stomach skill. There's 3 ways to feed your animals: giving them any food from your hand or through a throw, by crafting feeds in a ranching station, and by producing feed automatically through the electronic food throw. Even though the electronic food throw is the most advanced option, it is not the best in terms of food quality, so if you don't mind some manual placement of recipes, you can get better foods by making, for example, survival animal feed, which will give better buffs to your animals than the similar meat gruel. As I said, they're all omnivores, so we'll eat whatever. There is also this perk that every animal has that allows them to eat carcasses and pick berries off bushes when they're out traveling with you. This is poorly worded, but it does not mean that they will eat grass. Also, you have to close the window for this menu to appear after you've learned the skill. Unless you want your animals to level up, there isn't really a good reason to have them fed all the time. More so, when you have many, it's basically impossible anyway. Check this. I have all these animals here with their food and water throws, and the mammoth over there. They are all hitched right now, and when they're hitched, for some reason they don't take a few steps to get food. But what happens if you release them? Instead of eating at the closest throw, they decide to run through the fence and go for the farthest feeder. If you set the command for them to only eat at the assigned containers, what happens then? That's right, they'll eat but won't take a single step away from the feeder and won't let any other animal come close because we have the stay command activated. If I choose wander, they'll let others eat, but they'll just leave the ranch and go someplace else where they can get easily killed. And obviously we don't want them to follow, and therefore the only viable way is to have them hitched at all times where they can't reach the throws that you made for them, but at least you know they'll be safe. Apart from entering settings, you can switch commands for your tames by using whistles. Unfortunately, they're not actual whistles you craft at the workbench, not yet at least. They're just shortcuts available to set in the game settings for following and for combat for each individual animal or for all in the vicinity. It doesn't make it any easier to bring the chicken back into my barn, but I've noticed that after these whistles were added, the animals started to teleport to you much faster than before. Currently, whistles only work on mounts that you have personally claimed. By the way, you can unclaim your mounts to give them to your friends, but if you just want to let them ride your animals, you don't have to do that, as any other player can already ride any tamed mount. At the same time, if another player has the Companions Pack DLC, they can drop a cat or a dog for you to claim. It's not tied to the person that has the DLC purchased. And other items from other DLCs work the same way. So if playing with friends, you could just chip in and buy one DLC for everyone. Speaking of playing with friends, have you ever thought about getting a dedicated server for your group, so that you don't have to wait for the host that is eternally busy? Or maybe you've already felt the lags and FPS drops in the late game. Even the devs agree that there's massive performance issues when playing with others, and they recommend setting up a dedicated server. But then, the host will always have to be online for your group to be able to play, and you'll still be held back by the hardware of the server's owner that has to support both the server and the client processes. Not ideal. Consider renting a powerful gaming server from G-Portal like so many other Icarus players have. G-Portal makes it quick and easy to set up your own server, and you can even install mods on it as easily as you can install them on your own computer. Actually, they were kind enough to offer a permanent 10% discount for you. Use the link in the description to get yourself a server that's easy to use, has DDoS protection and top-of-the-line support. And if you ever want a server for another game, just cancel your Icarus server, pick any of the hundreds of games on G-Portal, and enjoy your 10% discount again. Forever. Finally, let's talk about the new breeding feature. Each tamed animal now has its own genotype, phenotype, lineage, and sex, allowing stats and traits to vary. Let's start with genotype. In the game, these are attributes for increasing health, stamina, damage and weight capacity, movement speed, defense, heat and cold resistances, and production speed for farm animals. The devs call them an initial set, so I assume they might expand them later on. Each animal has a random variation of these. They go from 1 to 10, with 3 being the base, meaning that an animal that has 2 will experience a debuff, like this sheep here, and everything starting from 4 will be a buff. Phenotypes are just color variations, meant to give distinct appearance to your tames. Bloodlines are special traits that add additional perks to the creatures. Here is the whole list, starting with the most common. These help you maximize stats for certain animals. For example, you would probably want Timid for a Moa so that it moves even faster. And sex is useful not only for breeding animals, but it can also change the skill set and abilities of animals. For example, you can mount bulls, but you can't mount cows, and so the bulls have a specific skill tree more similar to that of a buffalo. You can't see the genotype and phenotype of an animal until you tame it, but you can see the sex of a juvenile. To mate your animals, you need to craft a serum in the ranching station. As you can see, not all animals can be bred. Since the devs add new breedable animals in batches, you can rely on the list of serums to get the list of animals which can be bred currently. Once you get the serum, equip it and click right mouse button on the male variant. Come on, you little... Once the male does the deed, you have to wait for gestation period to finish, during which the mother will have decreased movement speed and increased food requirements, and then you'll have a baby with inherited genotype, phenotype, and bloodline from its parents, with slight mutations possible to occur. The baby also has to be tamed before you can see its stats, and the mother won't be able to make another baby for 10 minutes by default. Now that the chick has been tamed, what are the differences? The mother was ambitious and had these stats, the father was wild and had these stats, and the child turned out to be ambitious, with these stats. And it also turned out to be black, even though the parents were orange. And in the case of sheep, bold and ambitious turned into a much rarer unstable, with vastly different stats too. So as you can see, the variations can be massive. And this was before I had invested any skill points into genetics. See, there's a bunch of skills that you can learn to alter the default behavior. For example, you can pick Ranger's Sense for higher likelihood of high-quality juveniles, Wildcard to make mutations more likely, or even get your animals to birth twins through this skill. Also, I promise that I will tell you about sending your tames to the orbit. Basically, as long as you have an animal that follows you, you can request a pod through Orbital Exchange interface, and in the pod, you can elect to send your animal to the orbit, but without the saddle. Then, you pack up the Orbital Exchange interface and go where you need to go, and then request the animal from it when you've reached the destination. Equip the saddle, and you're good to go. Obviously, this means that you can start any mission with your own animals, and that you can transfer animals to and from other maps like Prometheus and Styx. Understandably, you don't want to lose your animals to glitches, bugs, and nasty enemies after you've spent a long time breeding and leveling up the perfect one. There's 2 ways to ensure you don't lose the progress. Number 1 is investing in perks that some of the animals, like Moa and cats have, which makes them spawn a baby after they die. For Moa, the skill is called From the Ashes, and for cats, it's 9 lives. Solution number 2 is to back up Mount's JSON file from your save folder and restore it if something goes wrong, but you'll lose the tames level that they got since the backup. Also, don't try to edit the file, it reportedly doesn't work. And do you know how to get advanced items like solar panels before you're able to craft them? If not, check out my tips and tricks video here, as well as my other videos with more useful information for Icarus over here. That's all from me today, good luck with getting the perfect mount.